A 1-1 draw here for Kingstonian at Bognor Regis, here with Hayden Bird. Hayden, if you'd have said at half-time that come full-time we'd be frustrated to only get a point out of that game, I'm not sure many people would have believed you.
I don't think anybody would have believed me, it is the truth, because in the first half I think we were as poor as we've been. And, you know, I don't want to say that and not recognise that Bognor didn't play well, because there's two teams on the pitch and I thought Bognor were really good in the first half. But it was so uncharacteristic of us. I think that there were one or two key things in the lead up to the game which didn't help. Obviously, now we'll speak about Ollie. But it was all over the place, is the truth. It was, you know, we have to say it as we see it. It was all over the place, and there was fundamental things that we had to address at half time. And it's probably the first time this season that there's some really harsh words have been said at half time. Because this is a group that hasn't really warranted that, but probably they did get it today. But the response from them speaks volumes for these players.
What was different in the second half? Obviously there was one personnel change, but it was bigger than that, whatever was different in the second half.
Well, I think there was two things. The first thing is football is a very easy game which people can complicate, but there's certain rules in football. And one rule is, if you're going to get outrun, you're going to get beaten. If you lose 80% of the second balls and you let people run off your shoulders, you're going to lose. And if you're so sloppy with the ball and keep giving it away in the first phase of play, you're going to create problems, and we did all of that. In the second half, we were much better with the ball, and I think that not only did we really dig in, and if we look at the GPS results on the vests, I think that they would see the difference between the work in the first half and what the players got through in the second half would be incomparable, to be quite frank. And we played forward. When we're not playing well, we don't play forward. When we're not playing well, it's too much sideways and backwards. People can get in, be compact against us, and we don't ask enough questions. And we play forward in the second half. And as a consequence of that, it was a really outstanding second half performance against a really difficult opponent.
It felt like in the second half that the threat was coming from a number of different places as well. I mean, you know, obviously we only got the one goal, but we hit the post, and there was, you know, a lot of. There have been times this season where we've had the ball without looking dangerous, but it felt in the second half we looked dangerous when we had the ball as well. What most pleased you about that second half going forward?
Well, I think the use of the ball was much smarter. In occasions where we dominate the ball but we don't look dangerous, the build-up hasn't been quick enough. We're taking too many touches on the ball. The movement isn't dictating the pass. And in the second half, all of that was right. And you know, unfortunately, Daniel Ejikayi, for instance, couldn't start the game because he's been sick all week with the flu. And so Daniel's game is based on amazing hard work. So really, he wasn't fit enough to do that for more than 20 minutes. But I think in his 20 minutes, he caused havoc.
Yeah.
I think Rhys Morel-Williamson gave us a dynamic where every time he got the ball, we were looking dangerous. And I want to say a big shout out to Jason Bantam today, who I thought carried a big threat. That threat allowed Bryant, who was uncharacteristically poor in the first half and let his opponent dominate him. Suddenly, Bryant is dominating his opponent, so we've got good widths. We're making the pitch as big as possible, and you know, you've got to give credit to Elliot. Elliot has come in, he gets in the right areas, he scored again, and the combination with Elliot and Daniel is becoming more and more difficult to ignore.
You mentioned kind of not being the most ideal build-up to the game. I think all of us were a little bit surprised when we looked at the team there and saw one centre-back. What went on there, and what did that mean in terms of having to readjust?
Well, we thought Cookie would be fit. Simon has tweaked his hamstring. Declan is at the final stages of his recovery with his hamstring. Obviously, Harry is out for the season, so I don't unkindly say there's no point mentioning him at the moment. But all week the indications were that Ollie would be fit. The medical team did a really good job with him throughout the week. He came into more purposeful training on Thursday. He suffered a very slight reaction to training on Friday morning, so there was a fitness test. But everybody thought that he would come through, and to be fair to Ollie was prepared to put his body on the line, and he was prepared to play. But very clearly, when he took his fitness test, it became evident quite quickly that the injury was too restrictive, the calf wasn't right, and he couldn't play. So that's obviously a problem, and that was a problem leading up to the game, because you've now got Kenny Beanie, who, even though I tried to convince him he will be like Mascherano at Barcelona, is having to play in a position he's never played in a league game. In fact, I don't think he's ever played he's played in the back three for me fleetingly, but he's certainly never played in the back four. And consequently, Kenny and the back players, I think, were far too deep in the first half. So it was difficult to press. The gaps were open, they played in pockets, and they were playing around us. We just needed to be a little bit braver, and to be a bit braver, we needed to get the team 10 yards higher up the pitch. And in playing 10 yards higher up the pitch, it was easier to press, it was easy to hunt in packs, and suddenly the threat of a very good forward line from Bognor disappeared.
It's funny that you mentioned that about Kenny, because one of the things that often strikes me is that we miss when he's not playing in midfield. He's so good at making sure the team are 10 yards further forward.
Yeah.
But I guess just him having to adjust for doing that in a completely different position is just so alien.
Yeah, and didn't he do well?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if we hadn't have won today, it certainly would not have been the fault of Kenny.
We didn't win, mate.
Sorry. Today, you know, when we drew the Cheshunt, it felt like we'd lost, didn't it? And I had to remind people that we drew. Today we've drawn and it felt like we won.
Yeah.
And for me, it feels like we've won because of the reaction of the team in the second half. I say again, I was shocked at half time by what I was watching, but with that criticism comes a great compliment to the players, because they reacted to the messages of the dressing room and were tremendous in the second half.
Any complaints around the penalty? I was at the other end, but it looked about as obvious a penalty as you're going to get.
Well, I've promised the chairman and the directors that I'm not going to criticise referees this season, but the referee has made a big mistake. In my view, that's not a penalty. And if it is the slightest of nicks, the guy's gone down as though he's been shot, and I think he's bought the penalty, and the referee has fallen for it. But you know, there's two ways of looking at it. That's probably been a little bit unfair on Bognor, because you could argue that's good forward play, and that's what you want the strikers to do. So my view is it wasn't a penalty. But I will counter that by saying 1-0 at half time was a good result for Kingstonian, because the game could have been out of sight. But thankfully we could address a few things because we were still in the game. And okay, they scored from a penalty, but you know, there was numerous occasions, particularly down our left and their right, that we were getting a little exposed. So perhaps I'm being selfish, and perhaps I should be more grateful that it was only one.
Next week, Royston the trophy. I know you talked a little bit about the draw with James yesterday, but week of preparation before that game is probably nicer rather than another midweek game.
Definitely, we need that preparation. We need to get players fit. We need to get Cookie back on the pitch. I mean, I think there's a chance he may be next Saturday. Simon will certainly be fit. I think Declan will certainly be fit. So that will help. Teo, Fab, no. But it's going to be a really tough game. But you know, we went out of the FA Cup far too early, and the team have made a pact that if we are going to be knocked out of the FA Trophy, it will be to a team at a higher level in the football pyramid. So they're at our level. I think they're a decent side. I think it'll be a really difficult game. They're a very physical team, but we'll be ready. We'll prepare well. I'll know everything about them by the time we set foot on the pitch, and I'm confident that we can have a really excellent run in the trophy as we did a couple of years ago.
Right, well, we'll see you then.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, mate.